parcels for a 7-person family. You've got this one. Oh, how can you live in a house with 7 people? I'm thinking, how many people are in your house? And he goes, oh, 8, you've got a point.
I've got 2 bags.
Alright, I'll get...
So is it like a, how do you do it, like bag per person or?
No, 5 bags for this one. And most of it's tin stuff, so it'll last. Even if it's one person, there's usually 2 bags to go. So there's usually 1 bag loaded full of tins, then another bag full of other stuff. Now we do differentiate between bags of tin stuff and bags of fresh stuff. There are some people who get both, some people just get the fresh stuff. Depends on who it is. You know, some people overly guilty, I don't mind it.
I listen to Johnny Cash.
I want to know how the system really works, I'll talk to Darrel.
PACT House was born by accident. It became a community hub or an all-encompassing support system. It started as a youth cafe drop-in, dealing with 18 of the hardest to engage young people in the local area, young people known to the police with problem families in problem areas. So we set about engaging with these kids, and it was fantastic. But what we found was some of our more challenging teenagers would turn up with a younger brother or sister because they were primarily carers. And then we would find a mum would appear every so often who would help with the cooking and doing some of the food stuff. And it was nearly always a domestic violence issue or some kind of mental health issue. Then suddenly austerity and universal credit kicked in and was rolling out, and it wasn't working early days for a lot of people. We kind of built it around food because we always thought if we can share the same food around the same table with different kinds of people, then that would be a positive and an easy route.
We started in a cafe just up the road here, just next to the straight charity shop up the road. And it started off really well. We were getting 40, 50 young people in every night, and it gave them a chance to meet me as a police officer and actually sit and talk to me rather than shout things and throw things at me, which they like to do previously. We needed somewhere for them to go where they would keep them off the streets, keep them away from harm, and that's how we all met.
People came to the building because there was nothing left. Services were cut everywhere. The youth centre had gone, the daycare centre had gone, the community centre was closing. There was nowhere for organisations and people to access help and support. There was less libraries, there was less access to what people needed. One of the first things we did early days was put Wi-Fi in, and that made a massive difference because nobody has data. Data is a commodity and an expensive commodity that people often don't have and enough to meet their work, search and commitments. It kind of grew organically through the building on the needs of the people who walked through the doors and said, you know what, I need this, or I can do this, or can I do this? And we were like, yeah, what do you need? I need a room, I need a kitchen, I need some light and heat, I maybe need some art materials. Could you get us this? Could we do that? Could we fundraise? Yeah, we can. How are we going to do it? We'll just do it together. What if it falls down? That's fine. I've got a great bus in PACT House, and sometimes I let an idiot drive it, but that's fine because if he crashes, I've got a guy who can fix the bus. It's fine. We're allowed to crash in life. It's okay. If we crash in life and learn a lesson, move on and get back on the bus with a better sense of where we're going, then I'm cool with that. That's absolutely fine. We've probably got the worst sat-nav in the world because different people are programming it in different directions, but somehow we're finding to get it at the same town.
I've had some wonderful family Christmases, obviously, but the Christmases we've had at PACT House have just been completely different because the people really, really appreciate that they probably weren't going to see anybody from the beginning of Christmas week to the end of it, and it's just really special to see people enjoying that day as though they're in a family, and we're trying to make it a family affair. It's really good.
COVID took that away. Instantly, it took it all away from us, and we really worried about what we would do. So we decided to throw our net wide and just say, look, we will deliver food on Christmas Day. We'll deliver you a 3-course Christmas Day and hopefully a bag full of Christmas goodies anywhere in like the north end of Durham. And on Christmas Day this year, we will deliver almost 150 meals into the community. And many of those people have never accessed support through us. And I know for a fact many of them won't see anybody else on Christmas Day. And the difference between having somebody knock on your door and have 15 minutes natter and give you a decent amount of food and engage is huge, because you can sit there and watch the cream by yourself, but I'd rather be me knocking on your door as a fat man with a beard and welcome Christmas sort of to your house.
You're not doing a documentary on the fact that the hats don't fit his head, are you?
Courtney hates coppers.
Courtney hates coppers. That's the name of her punk rock band, Courtney hates coppers.
Courtney hates coppers, even coppers inside the hats.
People have never met someone who is maybe trans or maybe is female one week and male the next, and it's difficult. People often we deal with have never even seen a black face, because it doesn't happen in Stanley too often. If you see somebody who's not white in Stanley, it's still odd. It's still not common. We're 99% white British is what we are, and it breaks down barriers. It makes the norm. It makes somebody who's met a young lady from Nigerian descent who grew up in the Tottenham area, who comes to County Durham and is wildly different from anybody they've ever spoken to, suddenly understands there's not really any difference at all. She's still a young lady who was struggling with an addiction with a small child and an abusive husband. That's what you've got. What's the difference? Colour of skin. It suddenly becomes not important. So we've done a huge amount of people, just bringing people to be people. You know, who you're sleeping with, what you identify as, the colour of your skin is important, but it doesn't have to be an issue across the board. So the social side would be brilliant. PACT House has a community hub where people can come in, support each other, have a natter, make sure nobody's lonely, if people are struggling with their mental health, because good or bad times, mental health is always a big issue within PACT House. We have that level of support, but there's not necessarily any deprivation linked to it. So, perfect world, I'd like us just to be there for whatever people needed, but not for the horrific stuff in life, which at the minute we do too often. It's hard. But we have happy days. We have more happy days than we don't.
Would you?
I think I said when you came round that I focus a lot on PACT House, on the tragedy, because people want to hear the tragedy.
Yeah.
Tragedy is what sells the building, but it isn't about tragedy by a mile.
About good stuff, about the way people have turned themselves around. Or sometimes all you need to do is give someone a bit of help for a few weeks, get them back up that level rather than support themselves, and you don't need long-term care. Humans are really complex, and you've got to treat people as in the police I always treat people as I would like my family to be treated, and I think we do that here. And people do fall on bad times, people make bad choices, and however, you know, there's a reason there's a rubber on the end of a pencil. It's because people do make mistakes. Try to make allowances for everyone, try to give people as many chances as possible, try to give people support appropriate and build them up and let them know they can succeed. We've got far too many people, from young people to adults, who've clearly never had any praise or never had anything where they felt they were contributing to society. I think a lot of the time they live to an expectation that you're not going to do well, you're not going to earn a lot of money, you're not going to have a good job, you're probably not going to have a nice house, you probably are forced into a mould of maybe a benefit cycle or a lowly paid job. I worry if we weren't here, where would it lead? Because I don't think there's enough people pushing people to better themselves and better the communities and better the people around them. Like I said before, opportunity is just massive for what we do. Opportunity can be small, but I don't know that the next guy doesn't walk through here and cure cancer. I really don't. Without those opportunity, I don't know where people would go or what they'd achieve. But we've got to give that small level of opportunity and then see where it blooms to. We're doing incredibly well for donations this year. Yeah, because last year we were really tight. We put out the shout. We got great donations this year. People have just instinctively been donating. I think a lot of people looked out for its hard times, and I think we've probably got more than the year we got the big donations. It's just quite impressed at how much stuff has come in, and for people that maybe shouldn't be donating, or they're tight themselves, but they just spend that little bit extra. I had a lovely message off a lady yesterday, the day before. Her granddaughter had been staying over and asked to go through the Santa list and just crossed off all the lol stuff. And said, can I not get that? And can we give the money to PACT House?
No way.
8 years old. So Grandma was really impressed. So they've done a PayPal giving fundraiser on Facebook. It was up to 160 quid this morning. So she's going to chip in her difference of a Christmas present, and they get 160 quid, which I keep saying to people, if 8, 9, 10-year-olds are wanting to help food poverty and support other people in the community, then we're winning. We just are. Is that like a speakery thing?
It looks like.
Right, now that might be Jamie Year 5.
That's girls.
It's up to them, and we don't wrap stuff just because it's easiest for us to dish out, and then we'll give, like these ones, we'll give them wrapping paper so they can wrap it up, so at least from a parent's point of view, if you're wrapping your kids' presents, it feels a bit more, you know, like it's you.
Hey. We found there was a need for something that didn't have maybe the stigma of going to a food bank. It wasn't as formal as going and getting referred by social services or a doctor or you know, a professional to what we would class as a proper food bank, a normal food bank. A lot of people are frightened to go to social services because they think if you go and say that you're struggling at social services or to the doctor, or they'll start looking at you a little bit more. They'll start looking at you, are you doing other things, you know, are your kids getting provided for another way? So the members won't go to social services or to one point and say I'm really struggling, because they'll think that that shows them in a bad light, that they can't provide for the kids.
Yeah, that's why I don't buy pints anymore. Before lockdown, you know, Stanley, although it is a fantastic place and I love it, it doesn't carry very well paid jobs. It has, it kind of hits high on all the deprivation. It, you know, has high poor health, high poor mental health, high unemployment. Educational attainment is extremely low. I think statistically we're one of the places where you're less likely to have a higher educational qualification or a degree. So we have a lot of people here whose life revolves around probably a minimum wage job. Not that there's anything wrong with working minimum wage. The problem we hit with lockdown is the jobs that a lot of people locally had are the ones that went quickly. They're the ones in hospitality. They were some of the shop work. They were some of the small businesses who couldn't afford to exist. And although the furlough scheme was great when it kicked in, a lot of people had already lost their jobs at that point. One of the major issues we found with people with furlough is they'd done okay. They had a holiday, they had a car, they were managing, they maybe owned their own home, but they lived week to week, month to month. And when you took away that money or gave them 80% of the money, very quickly things fell down. I spoke to a young lad who had 2 young girls, and he said, we've always done okay. I didn't want to come because I should need help. I've always managed. There'd be people worse off than me, but very quickly I realised there was no shopping money, and then there was no gas and electric money, and then there was no petrol money, and then there was just no money. And 6 weeks before his furlough payment kicked in, he just really, really struggled because he didn't have the resources or the earning ability to last for 6 weeks without a pay packet. And that's really sad because he'd done okay and he was a proud man, and I fought hard with him to get him to accept help. Quite adversely to things I've done in the past with PACT House is people on benefits were struggling less. There was the issue of the panic buying shopping because no one on benefits has the sort of bankroll up front to go and buy 4 baby milks or 200 toilet rolls. But they were definitely guaranteed the money at the end of the month. They were definitely guaranteed to have their rent paid, and they were getting a little extra off the government. So the whole PACT House ethos had somehow flipped, and that those people who had worked and managed suddenly couldn't. And the people that normally couldn't manage were managing marginally better than they were before. So, you'd laugh at the situation at sometimes, but it became quite horrendous for a lot of people very, very quickly.
It was really important for me to people to know that you don't just come and get the fresh food because you're struggling. It shouldn't be a soup kitchen, it shouldn't be a food bank. It should be a community asset that anybody you can come and get some food, and it takes that stigma away from things. That's what we're all about, taking the stigma away. So I encourage other people come and grab a bag of food, and even if you just you enjoy cooking and you could go and buy it, don't come and grab a bag of our food and see what you can make from. It's like a ready, steady cook.
I'm like a drug dealer with tinned goods, aren't I? Sometimes it's kind of like, what do you got? I've got beans. What do you got? We've got peas. We should do a deal. What size nappies you got? Size 6 pull-up? I've got pull-ups, mate. I've got pull-up nappies. You'll just have normal nappies. I've got pull-ups. Paula makes broth with like bits of animals that have been extinct. But it's like a mammoth tusk.
It was pheasant actually.
Was it pheasant?
It was pheasant broth.
I think he said to Kevin, it's the broth's just like my mum used to make, and he was in his 90s. So obviously his mum was making pheasant with like woolly mammoths and tiger. So Paul has been making broths for 9 months for this old guy.
Yes.
Because it's just like his mum used to make.
This food is for our cooking course, so we've all joined together and we've prepped all the veg and we cooked the turkey, and we're just going to all have a socially distanced Christmas dinner.
We've got a contract through Durham County Council to deliver community learning to get adults involved in education, and this one is to involve families as well. So we're doing Christmas dinners and we're doing crafts this afternoon.
PACT House, to see it in its true sense, is to see it in its full glory. When the place is full of 40 or 50 people having food, nattering, you can see people that shouldn't be together, social groups that wouldn't engage anywhere else, people who come in to help to cook, young people who help to serve, the school who will make food on a Wednesday afternoon to bring down. There's a buzz about the building. One thing people always say is that they can feel the compassion and the love within it. It's like it's an all-encompassing unit of people who just kind of like welcome you once you come through the door. The buzz within the building on the community is immense. It's noisy. It's a really noisy environment. There's far too many people talking. The music's played too loud. Somebody's shouting, "Do you want extra chips?" But it is, there's no better feeling to be in that environment. It's like a warm, soft, snuggly blanket that just wraps you up and says, "Come on in, you belong with us." Everybody finds their place and their job to do. People will start instinctively clearing tables. They will gauge people quickly, and if somebody's maybe sitting by themselves or not saying a lot, or maybe they're not the person they were last week, someone will ask or speak to them, see if they're all right. You've got people up and down the stairs. People want to mess about with the radio room. Then we have our little breakout room where people will go in there and eat food on their own, just because they don't feel comfortable. Dean will break out a guitar. John will start playing the piano. I'll come down and shout because somebody hasn't done the dishes, and then I'll do the dishes because I'm soft.
Aye. I've never known anywhere else like it, to be honest, for that. But the people at Stanley people are just awesome, really. Wait, not just even Stanley people, I think North East people in general. Some of the nicest, kindest people going, I think. Because I think a lot of it is obviously my generation and the generation before obviously grew up with nothing.
Yeah.
And obviously from the mines and then the strikes, etc., etc. And they're used to having nothing, so they're more willing to, they know how hard it is when someone hasn't got nothing. So they're more than happy to donate.
I'd like to think that a lot of it came from the times when even employed miners weren't earning a lot. They weren't earning enough to exist and survive, often with very large families because of the mortality rates. And there's always been that kind of sense of like, you know, if we've got spare, you can have it. If we haven't got spare, we'll share. Every community that I go to around Stanley has the tale of a brother or sister that's not really a brother or sister, or an auntie or an uncle that's not really an auntie and uncle. Families picked up either, you know, kids who'd been orphaned or other family members who didn't have any community.
Because usually most years Dave would have, he would have been coming on Christmas Day, wouldn't he? You'd have been here Christmas morning.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
Never know,
a bit different, but we'll still do something, won't we? Yeah.
So Dave's gone from Dave the Copper to Dave the Santa.
Dave Claus.
Dave Claus.
Shall we go in the hall? Because it's a bit less smoky than my room.
Ho ho ho! Hello everyone, it's Santa Claus here. I'm just about to set off, delivering my presents. Rudolph's ready with his nose so bright, and he's going to guide my sleigh tonight to Stanley. I hope everyone's going to be going to bed at a reasonable time and leaves a key for the door and a carrot and some mince pies and a glass of milk for me. I hope you all have a lovely Christmas in the morning, and I shall speak to you tomorrow. Ho ho ho!
perfect.
Let's have a look.
Today's Christmas Day in Stanley. It's nice light covering of snow, and we've 159 dinners to deliver out to the community. We did 86 last year, so it's almost double. I think that's probably a mark of the need this year and the fear of going out. I've got 15 people coming in to volunteer, which again is amazing, and hopefully by 1 o'clock we'll have 159 people sitting eating Christmas Day lunch. Well, normally through PACT House in a winter, we're looking at 30 to 35 food parcels a week. Winter's a tough time for people. They want to see their kids sort of looked after at Christmas. Heating bills are going up. It's just generally a more expensive spend through November through into early January. Some people find themselves in debt. So we're looking at 35 parcels a week on an average week in a winter month. In the early days of COVID, in the spring, we went from 35 a week to 35 a day to 50 a day to 100 a day to sometimes like 600% increase in what we'd expect. PACT House is a brilliant building, but it is what it is. It's a small bank, sort of very narrow with limited space on a ground floor and then upstairs. So we moved up to the Civic Hall because Stanley didn't need a Civic Hall and a theatre space and a cinema. What it needed was more room to support its community. So the Town Council were very kind. They let us have pretty much carte blanche use of the building, and we just spread into it. When you're dealing with a 600% increase in what your normal supply chain would accommodate, plus donations increased from the likes of Fairshare and some of the businesses locally, we just spread to give us the ability to pack food parcels and distribute help on the volume that was required day to day locally. To be honest, the COVID thing was a bit of a nightmare, but the positive that came out was that we accessed a load of people that never felt they needed help. We made some great relationships, especially with older people who again were an element of the community that did okay. They got up for their prescriptions, they managed to get their shopping, they popped round for a coffee and a tea cake, but take that away and lock them in, and suddenly they became a very isolated and abandoned community. Often these were people who had no family members locally, or they didn't even have anybody who gave them a knock. We made the connections with an awful lot of quite wonderful people who just needed a friend. And that wouldn't have happened. COVID highlighted a whole swathe of our community that we'd even missed because they were the hardest to reach, and it put them in a situation where they had to reach out to some degree because no one was there to help them unless they put their hand up or raised the flag and said, I'm here, I need some support. So that was a very, very much a positive of the COVID. In fact, we built up such fantastic relationship with people that we'd never met. On the back of that, what we did was we did almost like a Meals on Wheels kind of situation where it supported them through a bit crisis and poverty, but it just maintained that connection. So it gave us a reason to sort of every day knock on somebody's door, check that they're okay, see if they wanted anything, and just say, you know, what are you doing for Christmas? Where will you be next year? Are we all right to call upon you? So there's always somebody willing to give you that knock with that hand up, or that little bit of a, you know, do you need a hug? You can have one in any shape or form, whether it be with what we do with PACT House with some of the food and the mental health support and you know, the wraparound sort of like dealing with isolation. But I think Stanley as a community is probably not recognised enough for the pockets of looking after their own, which you can't ever go wrong when somebody's always willing to look after their own. I don't think PACT House will ever stand still. It'll always change based through the people who walk in the doors and the problems it has, depending on how old or young they are, or where they've been on their life, or where they're from within the world. We've had people from all over the world through the doors bring a whole different sense of values and a sense of responsibility. So I'm proud of PACT House in that it can evolve and grow, but I hate it in the fact when people say, what's your model? And I'm kind of, we just turn the key in the door each day and see what it brings. And then at 11 o'clock, we lock the door and see what the next day brings.